Thank you. Better radio. Okay, my name's Scott Ebner. I am the Chief of Police and Fire Chief of the City of Hillsdale. I was asked to facilitate this meeting tonight. And with that, to start out, I just want to share some information. Tonight is a question and answer for everybody to get the information they want or hear the information they want. Tonight is not a public hearing. Those are done at council meetings. And tonight is not a special council meeting. That's why everybody is sitting out here, including council members. Monday night, this is upcoming Monday night, the 16th, excuse me, at the normal council meeting, it is on the agenda for them to discuss and I believe vote if somebody makes a motion on what's presented tonight. So at the council meeting Monday night is when people can go to the podium, voice their opinion, make their comments, say whatever they want to say about this. Tonight is a question and answer. We have representatives from MDOT here, Alan from Zoning and Planning, Jason from Department of Public Services, and representing engineering, I'm sure. So we should have people here for whatever questions you have to answer them to the best of the ability, and hopefully that you feel that your questions have been answered. What they're doing is having you write your questions down. When I'm done talking, Alan is going to do a presentation on what's going to council for them to consider on Monday night. After that, I will start asking the questions that you have written down, and the appropriate person to answer that question or persons will come up here and answer those questions. I will read every question. The only one, even if it's a duplicate, I will read it and say this is a duplicate and we're going to move on to the next question. If it's worded a little differently where it could elicit a different response or more information, we will read it. We will be keeping all these after the meeting. We're not censoring them, we're not going through and picking. We'll try to get everybody's questions answered that they have on this. So again, thank you for coming tonight. A lot of the staff that was involved in this were doing it because they were told to do it. This is the second required meeting. I believe it's an MDOT requirement before this goes to council for a vote. And so, you know, the vote that council will be doing is not to say this is set in stone, it's approving the city to submit their grant application for this project that's presented. So they have full decision making next Monday night whether to approve that moving forward or not approve it, and that is done. That's my understanding. It was be done if nobody made a motion or it did not pass. So tonight is that last meeting for everybody to get as much information as they can. So if they want to come Monday night to the council meeting and voice their concern, or if they're pro for this, and between now and Monday, please reach out to the council members, yours, all of them. You can express through email, phone calls, come to the meeting and express. That's completely up to you. Your prerogative, but we don't know how long tonight's going to go. I know it was published from 6 to 8. We're going to hope to get to everything so everybody feels that they've had their questions answered tonight. So Sam, yep.
Can I ask you a couple questions about the meeting itself before?
Sure.
Thank you for filling in for this. When did you find out that you were going to be moderating this meeting?
Yesterday afternoon.
Yesterday afternoon. I'm curious, were you at the meeting, the previous council meeting where we discussed this for up to 10 minutes?
I was at the last council meeting, yes.
Okay. Were you in the threads this week from city staff and the attorney to the city council about the status of this meeting?
No.
Chief, again, forgive me, but are you familiar with or expert at the Open Meetings Act or what the statutes say about this meeting as a requirement to check a box to submit the final thing? Is that something that you've been tracking or familiar with?
Not tracking, but I've been told that the city had a requirement to have the 2 meetings.
But
the first was in January.
I'm sorry, excuse me, but the parameters of the meeting, like the note cards, for instance, I don't know where that came from. Do you?
the city has done this in the past for, excuse me, for informational meetings. They've had even moderators that were not city staff come and do this. So I am familiar with that, and I have been present at least 2 times in the past when this was the way the meeting was conducted.
I see. Maybe one last question, or series of questions. Were you at the January library meeting about this subject?
No.
It came to my attention that there was some rumor or indication that perhaps you were standing in tonight because there was some fear of, how do I say, a disruption from the people showing up, and that a man of your stature would keep that at bay, as though the citizens were somehow misbehaving or on the verge of misbehaving at the library meeting. Is there anything
No,
to that?
when I was called by the city manager, he could not get back to town to do this tonight and asked me to do it in his stead. And
He was not at the previous meeting either.
I
So
don't know.
that's why, I mean, I don't, Mr. Beaker ran the previous meeting. But I heard that rumor, and I was at the meeting, many of us were at the meeting, and there was no hint of such a thing. So this is a very different meeting, but to the public eye, the meetings, that was the first meeting, this is the second meeting, they should have been similar, and this is very dissimilar. The writing on the note cards, you know, back and forth is a more natural way to get answers, and so there's a lot of disgruntlement. And then the status, a lot of people, I've heard some here tonight, even went to the library because the public notice may or may not have met the requirements for a public notice for a meeting of this importance. So there's a lot of concerns surrounding this meeting, and I know that you're not responsible for it, so again, thank you for filling in, and we'll see if it passes muster as the parameters require, and who knows what those are.
We'll give it the best shot.
Thank you, Chief.
Sam's still in here? Okay, we'll move forward. Alan's going to give the presentation, like I said, to brief everybody on where the project is at this point in time.
Okay, so we are in the process of going through the requirements, the MDOT requirements for to implement a road diet within the city of Hillsdale, which would include M99 from East Carlton to Steenburg. So the presentation is to just update on the project and to give you some additional information as far as what a road diet or traffic calming plan is. So in our case, it is a 4 to 3 lane conversion. So we're going to go from 4 lanes down to 3. So it will be a north and south lane of traffic with a dedicated left turn lane. And the intent is to implement it in conjunction with an MDOT reconstruction project of that portion of M99. So in 2008, MDOT reconstructed M99 to its current configuration. And in 2013, our local TIFA, which the district encompasses most of the downtown, well, all of the downtown. Oops, sorry. Stop fidgeting with the mouse. And we did a placemaking study. That placemaking study actually came out of a desire by a couple of business owners within the downtown TIFA to determine where to put bike stands. And we received a grant, hired a planner back at Mariner, and they did a placemaking study. And out of that placemaking study, they urged the TIFA to do a road diet. None of us had ever heard of a road diet at that point. So after doing some research and finding out what a road diet was, everybody was on board. And in 2020, well actually even before that, there was the adoption of the placemaking study involved a public hearing, and it was presented to the public. It was presented to the local TIFA board, and it was presented to our city council at the time, and it was accepted by all. In 20 and then there was some minor planning done as far as just mainly information gathering, and then in 2020 we approached MDOT and asked them what was involved in actually implementing a road diet or a traffic calming plan through the downtown. As fate would have it, it wound up being the last in-person meeting that anyone had with MDOT or any other Lansing office until after COVID. And so, as you would expect, nothing happened after that. But in 2023, MDOT approached us in the fall of 2023 and asked if we were still interested in implementing a road diet or traffic calming plan, because they were in the process of budgeting and doing planning for reconstruction of M99 from Hallett. Originally it was from Hallett to Carlton. Eventually that project has been expanded, but they wanted to know if we wanted to participate in the design work and by doing so save the city the design, the funds for design, because it would be included in the design work that they were going to have to do for the reconstruction. We said yes, we wanted to pursue that. And so they suggested that we submit an application for a TAP grant, which is called the Transportation Alternative Program. And because we were going to narrow or reduce the number of lanes, but not reduce the width of the actual street, we had extra pavement, so to speak. And so that meant that we could put in some bike routes or some areas that would allow for cycling, other non-motorized traffic, and it would also improve the pedestrian safety in crossing M99. So we submitted. So our council at the time passed a resolution to give permission to submit an application, and so we did that. And we are still. This is part of that. This meeting, the meeting in January, and a resolution that will be required by council to discuss and vote on at the Monday night meeting. Excuse me. Are all some of the submission requirements for the grant. So and then the actual project, if everything moves forward as intended, the actual project would occur during the 2027 construction period. So the motivation, calming traffic flow. That was primary. The idea was to slow down, concentrate, and calm the traffic through the downtown, so that it was just more pleasant to be a pedestrian in the downtown. Pedestrian safety was at the top of that list. I don't know if you know how many of you cross M99 on a regular basis, but it's not always the most pleasant thing to do. And then noise reduction goes along with calming traffic and slowing things down. And then economic development is another one. And I thought it would be. I asked Sam if he would speak a little bit to the economic advantages to having a traffic calming plan.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Fry. I work for the City of Hillsdale as our Marketing and Economic Development Coordinator. Like Alan mentioned, the presentation tonight is going to talk a lot about the specific details of this project. One of the areas that I wanted to kind of focus on is the economic development angle that I think is worthy of thought and consideration. In a number of conversations that I've had with both businesses and local residents, there's a common shared interest in seeing a downtown that is more active, that is better utilized, that has storefronts that are full, that pedestrians feel is accessible and they can get to where they need to go, downtown that's family friendly, and downtown where people choose to spend time. I think one way to think of it is, to kind of ask ourselves, in its current configuration, do we feel that Hillsdale is a place that people are simply just driving through, or is it a destination that people want to drive to? Right now, Broad Street functions exactly like a state highway, which it is, but that comes with trade-offs. Vehicles tend to travel quickly through downtown. The volume and the speed of traffic can make it less appealing for pedestrians. That in turn often has the effect of discouraging residents and visitors from walking or biking to local businesses. And there's also the visibility factor. In communities that have looked at doing a traffic calming plan and have executed it, there's a lot of studies and literature that show that businesses actually see a benefit when people slow down enough to notice them. When traffic is moving too fast, or if pedestrians don't feel comfortable shopping downtown and spending time there, it's hard for those businesses to capture potential customers. Over the last 4 years in the city, as we've partnered with the Indiana Rail Experience to help increase our local tourism, this is another issue that's come up. We've done train events now for 4 or 5 years. Every year the train comes in. Usually there are 3 or 4 stops a year, so that's several thousand visitors and tourists that are coming into Hillsdale. These are people that already want to explore the community and enjoy what we have to offer. One of the most common pieces of feedback that I receive after every single one of these train events is that our downtown is not pedestrian friendly, it can be difficult to navigate, both the intersection or crossing Carlton Road, Broad Street being too wide for people to safely cross. Those are all things that we hear, and I think those are things that illustrate that there is a connection between infrastructure and economic opportunity for our residents in Hillsdale, for the visitors that we have coming into our community. Lastly, I just want to note, when we think of the traffic study as a whole, it's not necessarily about making downtown less accessible by car or certain modes of transit. It's kind of about making it more accessible to all. I think that has direct implications for not only the economic impact on our downtown, but our community's vitality. Again, whether we are fully utilizing some of our storefronts, these are all things to think about. Does a more balanced, people-oriented street design help create the kind of environment that is going to support our local businesses? So I just encourage everyone, as we focus on other aspects of the presentation tonight, that is something that may be worth keeping in mind as we think about the connection between infrastructure, the built environment, and what that means for human flourishing and for the economic vitality of downtown Hillsdale. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. So the U.S. Transportation did a study on what happens when we reduce the number of lanes of traffic, and one of the other things that was noted was that there was a significant reduction in traffic crashes. So especially rear-ending and sideswiping, the statistics that they came to were between 19 and 47%. So intersection safety was one of the other things that that motivated the pursuit of a road diet. Having a designated left turn lane means that when you're turning left, those vehicles are now out of the flow of traffic. And you're only turning left across one lane as opposed to two or more. Wider turning radiuses, especially for trucks. You know, right-hand turns, now you have some more room to navigate a turn. And then by adding that, by claiming that that unused space as a bike lane, it also acts as a buffer zone between the moving traffic and those people who are in the parallel parking areas. So that when you do want to get out of your car, you don't have to worry about a semi taking off your door as you're opening it. And then as we spoke earlier, there's a noted reduction in sideswipe and rear end crashes. This is a quick map of the route that will be impacted, starting down here at Steenberg in the south, and then running all the way up Broad Street to Carlton. And then the city will also do some lane reduction work on this part of East Carlton, running from M99 back to about Ferris. So, but the intent, so it'll make pedestrian crosses safer. There will be added signage, the bike lanes, and then reducing the risk that we've already discussed. So I know this one isn't as quite as clear as I had hoped it would be, but the upper area is our street condition now. So if you look at, you probably can't really tell, but this line here and this line over here are the building lines. We've got our sidewalks, and from curb to curb, it's filled with vehicles. So you've got two areas of on-street parking, and then you have two northbound lanes of traffic and two southbound lanes of traffic. The proposed street condition is to keep that same width, however, and to keep the on-street parking. We're not doing anything as far as changing the locations of the on-street parking. We're not adding, we're not subtracting. All the on-street parking stays the same. However, we will only have one southbound lane of traffic, one northbound lane of traffic. There will be a designated left turn lane in between, and then that area that is no longer part of motor vehicle traffic will be claimed as bike lane and buffer lane. So these are the plans that were submitted to MDOT and for the TAP grant. They're preliminary. So this one here on the left is the existing lane configuration at Steenberg, where it splits into 4 lanes from 2 to 4, and then on the right is the configuration with the conversion from 4 lanes to 3 with the dedicated bike lanes. At the intersection of Waldron, Budlong, and Broad, we're looking at getting rid of this little spur here in front of the bank, filling that in so that you turn left, and then you can make a left turn, or then you can turn either onto Budlong or onto Waldron, but it creates a larger radius for traffic, or for semi-traffic, and then you just have a single outlet or inlet for traffic turning into that intersection.
Hey, Alan, would it be possible to move the TV closer up to us?
Yeah. Sam and I kind of played with that, and there is really no good place to put it.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. There's a hardware connection with the podium. Is it possible to move the podium on this side anymore, or no? Podium stuff.
that better?
I just ruined it for this.
Now you can't see it at all. Okay.
Alan, if you have a keyboard in your mouse, I think you can press
Yeah, I
and
can
hold.
probably, whoops.
If you control and then your mouse wheel, you should be able to zoom in and out on the
All right.
Does it make sense for you to stand over at that microphone, or have a seat at that microphone?
And then we'll-
You turn that on.
The camera's not obscured.
Can everybody see now?
If you want to share it now.
Okay. Okay. At Bacon, on the left, you can see where Cook, Bacon, and all come out onto where Bacon crosses and Cook intersects with Broad Street. The intent is still to vacate and abandon Cook as a city street. However, after public feedback, the city will put in a drive that empties onto Bacon, but it removes it from the Bacon and Broad intersection, and then that would enable the adjacent property owners to create a parking lot or just continue to use it as a through street.
Going which way?
Pardon?
Going both ways?
Well, actually, you could, if you didn't have parallel parking, you could use it, you could actually do a two-lane street there. That's why it's only a one-way street now, is because they put parking on one side and it limits the fence. But since it would become a private street, they could do whatever they wanted.
Now, can we ask questions of it or no?
Now, you can write it down and we'll answer them after the presentation. So, and then when you get to Broad and Carlton, the existing, this is a much larger project. Part of this will be city-driven project outside of the road diet, but it's taking advantage of some changes that we're making for the road diet to improve the parking area there over by the post office, between the post office and Ferris Street. The existing currently has the drive into the post office and the continuation of Hillsdale Street or Howell Street, whichever one you decide it's supposed to be called. And then with the intent of closing that off, and then so that we can make a larger parking area over there, we would actually abandon the continuation of Union, and then we would do some work on the intersection at Ferris and Carlton, but we would increase the parking from 17 parking spaces over there to 47 parking spaces. So the other change revision that we made to this particular area that came out of feedback from January was leaving the traffic flow there by City Hall so that the police parking would have immediate access onto Carlton, and then we closed off a lane, the parking lane there at here at City Hall, and added a larger turning radius to accommodate semi-traffic, since we're closing off that little spur there. So some of the other outcomes of doing a road diet traffic calming improves bike and pedestrian safety. By adding bike lanes, it makes it more convenient. It separates bikes from the sidewalks, which makes it safer for both bicyclists and pedestrians. So this would be the opportunity we would take to collect your question cards. So do you want me to collect them? And I wrote them all? Oh, okay, all right. So you get it back, just bring them over and I'll
Clusters.
Yeah, so there's some good things. Has it been awarded yet? See, so we're betting on it at this point.
And we know this part, from hearing the answers to some of these questions, you may have more questions. Feel free to make out more questions later if you need to. So when I read these, the appropriate person answers, please just step up here and answer the question. Can this road diet stretch from Bacon Street north to Carlton and not go from Broad Street south to Steenberg?
So that question was asked in January, and MDOT said that they required it to go from Steenberg to Carlton. So the answer is yes.
Whose idea was this?
So this came,
Well, let's be
as
real.
part of that background history, it came out of the placemaking study that Tifa implemented, and it's been as more and more research was done into the advantages to a road diet. It was also included in the city's master plan, in Tifa's development plan, which is their master plan, and it's also been included in capital improvement budget plans over the last, since 2017 when the placemaking study was approved, and each time there was a public hearing, and each time it was passed by council.
Why should Hillsdale spend $200,000 when this is not needed?
I mean, as far as need or not, it's been pursued, it's been approved, it's been studied. That's something that council will decide on Monday, one way or the other.
I like to add to that right now.
Okay.
So also part of this is the city's getting the parking lot from 17 to 47, I believe you said, Alan, right? It's gonna fix the brick through the downtown that has sunk and settled over the last several years. The parking area we talked about, the brick. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with what Quonset boxes are, it's all the electrical boxes downtown. They're about $800 a piece, and every one of them, about 100 of them, all the way down is gonna get replaced as well. I mean, these are costs that the city's gonna eat regardless if we get this or not.
And also on this statement, DPS does not need, and says no city police. That could be referencing the prior plan when the parking was different.
No.
What is the opinion of the police department on this change? Will it really reduce congestion / traffic? I had a conversation with Councilmember Bentley earlier today, and that was part of our discussion. A lot of our accidents downtown through here, and I'm looking at specifically from public safety standpoint, which involves traffic accidents. A lot of ours are involved at the intersections of Broad and McCollum, Broad and Bacon Street, and they have to do with generally somebody trying to make a left-hand turn. If you're in the inside lane behind somebody gonna make a left-hand turn, you're trying to get into the right lane, or you weren't paying attention, didn't realize the person in front of you stopped. Or somebody shoots a yellow light coming off Bacon trying to get a quick turn in. This, by having a dedicated turn lane, from my perspective and what I know from other communities and what Alan had in his presentation, number of traffic accidents in this scenario where you're going down and adding that turn lane does reduce the amount of accidents. And from that standpoint, whatever can be done to reduce accidents, the police department is for. We have accidents farther down at the intersection of Broad and South, Broad and Hallett, and Broad and Steenberg. Every intersection down through there. And we've even had fatalities. Generally, they're at the intersection. It's rare that we have, let's say, a side swipe or a rear end in between the intersections. So from that standpoint, on a reduction or potential reduction of accidents, specifically ones that would cause injury, is a bonus. The police department would be for that. I'm not saying going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes and adding bike lanes. Police department doesn't care. You guys all travel through the city of Hillsdale. We do. I've done it for years. Spent my entire shifts out in the car. How do you like making a left-hand turn in the city of Hillsdale? Not fun. You wait. Even in a police car, you wait if you're not on an emergency call. That's always been a contention. I've heard from the citizens and I hear from the officers and experience myself. Making a left-hand turn in this city, even we start planning our routes, making right-hand turns to get somewhere where we need to go. If this would assist with that and pedestrian crossing, this is the worst one I've ever seen. I had to stop parking my personal vehicle across the street to walk to City Hall because I've almost been hit so many times, even in the broad daylight. Traffic is not looking for pedestrians, they're waiting for their opportunity to make their turn. In my opinion, something needs to be done to curb accidents and potential risk of somebody really getting harmed out here. And I don't think we've had it yet, but so many people have called in with their close calls and I've experienced it myself. Can we stop calling this a road diet? It's a lane closure. Is road diet set in stone, MDOT?
Nope, road diet is just it's a common term around the country. Some people call it a lane reduction, lane repurposing. You can call it whatever you want.
Okay. How many accidents have occurred in the past year on the relevant section of M99? I would have to research it, I'd have to pull that
I
data.
can answer that.
Actually, our traffic study has that information.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the past 3 years, there was an average of 20.3 crashes per year.
Running this section from Steenberg to Carlton? Okay. How much money will the city of Hillsdale have to expend with the current plan?
That's still up for, we're not certain yet because we don't know what the grant will be and we don't know what the final cost will be.
How many grant dollars will the city of Hillsdale receive if they enact the road diet as presented?
Again, we're not certain yet, but
Is there a range?
yeah, there is a range.
Yeah, I think the range, the grant is a 80-20 split.
Yep.
And so the range, I think that we last looked at was between 800,000 and $1 million in total.
Yeah.
So that would be 20%. So the maximum 1 million, I think we talked about a $200,000 grant or match from the city, and then the rest of the 800,000 would be from the grant itself. That'll be prorated at that rate depending on the final cost during the project, in the pre-construction and then post-construction.
How can the city use any tax dollars received?
I'm not sure I understand the question. How, repeat it?
How can the city use any tax dollars received? I know they have dedicated funds towards road construction and pilot money, and assess how many mills for road construction a year?
Three, Jason?
So, there is dedicated money that goes just towards, it's earmarked for road construction. But I don't think anybody here knows that exact dollar number per year. Have any surveys of downtown businesses and residents been conducted? If so, what information was solicited in those surveys?
I mean, there's not been an official survey of businesses, but we've had several business owners express their views on the road diet, and the majority of the business owners, especially along Broad Street, have been in favor of it. I can tell you that Cindy Bezick of the filling station is adamantly in favor of it, since she's had two accidents in the last year that have sideswiped cars in front of her business. So she's very supportive of the project. And there are other people who regularly park along Broad Street who have lost mirrors, and that type of thing. So, you know, for those people who use Broad Street on a regular basis, they're in support. They seem to be in support of it.
How many accidents on M99 have involved pedestrians? Did you have that
Do we have
breakdown?
that?
I do have that breakdown. As of now, from 2021 to 2023, there were no pedestrian crashes.
And I can only think of a couple that are probably in the last 10 to 15 years that involved pedestrians on that stretch. What is the average commute time delay projected from the road diet?
Delays at intersections is how we did most of it. The only noticeable delay that I'm aware of is at Carlton and Broad, and that was mainly because the proposal is to put in a traffic, is to change some of the signaling to have delays for pedestrian crossing. But it's not all that significant. It was what, 7 or 11 seconds?
It was 14, but we're also adding that left turn phase.
Right.
For westbound left turn phase, which changes it. But the other intersections experience a delay increase of less than 4 seconds for the total intersection.
So one direction up to 14 seconds and the other direction less than that based on study.
Chief, when people are answering questions, can they step up and speak up?
I was gonna say that, we do have a live stream listening too, just please speak in the microphone so everyone can.
Okay, we will, yes, I didn't think of that. How many communities in Michigan have undergone, I got that, I'm trying to get to work before that, the road diet process?
Talking to the mic.
Yes.
I can't speak for Mike Davis, one of the region planners from MDOT. I can't speak for the entire state, but in our region, 9 counties, we've done several, I think up about 3 or 4 in and around the city of Lansing. We've done one near Grand Ledge. We're working currently on Jonesville. We have Tecumseh. We've had Dundee. We've had Adrian, I believe, also had the road diet. My colleagues might have to fact check me on that one. The city of Ypsilanti, the city of Ann Arbor, the city of Brighton, the city of Howell. Last year, the city of Williamston explored a road diet. Their residents weren't satisfied with exactly how it was going to work for them, so we didn't pursue that. So that's just a sampling in our region, and then I can't even tell you how many have happened throughout the state. So, thank you.
Can anybody state what changes resulted from these road diets? Besides what's already been said.
wouldn't have anything on us today that is a definitive, statistically significant or data to present, but Alan noted what we have as our literature and research around the country. And so what we do see is, we do see a reduction in speed, could be up to 5 miles an hour, could be at 1 mile an hour, but there is a reduction in speed. We tend to see increased business activity that they talked about. Certainly we see a reduction in crashes. Sometimes it is a major reduction, sometimes it's not. So I think what we talked about, or what Alan mentioned in the presentation, are kind of the overall encompassing categories. Increased safety, I would say partly is an increase in perceived safety, that perception that traffic is slower, that drivers are following more respectfully. Now, depends on where you are in the state, if people are tailgating or not, but so we have more of that perceived sense of safety, increased bike and pedestrian activity, and then I think the one subtle thing that maybe is not intuitive about road diets is that increased economic development comes from drivers driving slower through downtowns, stopping waiting a couple seconds longer at an intersection, and deciding that they might come back to a business the next time they come through, or they might have the opportunity and decide to stop right there and frequent a business. And then we see that same thing happening with cyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, I think I can answer this one. Was Matt Bentley on City Council during the initial road diet meetings and public comment sessions? I'm not familiar that you had served prior to this term, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's very recent, less than a year, correct?
November.
Okay. What benefits will accrue to pedestrians from the bike lanes?
I think the greatest benefit from a pedestrian perspective, the greatest benefit is not having a vehicle in that traffic lane. So even though there is another user, right, there is bikes, or let's say that we hope there will be bikes in the bike lane, and we assume that they'll be there, that conflict, if you want to call it that, between a pedestrian and a cyclist typically happens at a lower speed, happens at a much more face-to-face. You're able to see the person walking or biking towards you and have time to react, have more time to react. And so you're able to use that bike lane as a pedestrian when you're crossing the street, especially as a buffer. If there's no cyclist in that bike lane, it's dedicated space that a vehicle is not going to be in, that you can enter into the street, make sure that you can safely cross, you can see all bounds of traffic, and have more of that buffer, and then less actual time crossing active lanes of vehicle traffic.
Would a traffic light at Broad and Hallett Street achieve a traffic slowdown? In all the years I worked the road there, it would only slow it down while they were stopped at the red light, and then they'd be right back up to whatever speed they normally travel at. That's just from my years, decades of observation. Is our local prosecutor prepared to charge motorists with a crime? When should a cyclist get hit on this road, new road design? If a crime had occurred, absolutely. Not everything is a criminal matter, but even with accidents. A lot of them involve civil infraction, traffic violations. There has to be some type of generally intent for it to get to a criminal process. How much of the city's utopian view of this new road design dependent on funding that requires a bike lane. Does the city contemplate that they are prostituting themselves to the state's liberal whims? Not a question for me.
I'm not sure who that's a question for.
I think it's a question for you, Alan.
Me? Utopian, wow.
I know, right?
I'm not sure we'll ever reach a utopian state, but, so the reason that we are pursuing it is because it is something that came out of the study that was encouraged by the group that implemented the study, and it was encouraged not only by the city's planning commission but also by the city councils. You know, it's been, and each time it's presented for a new point of discussion and passage, there is a public hearing involved, and sometimes the public has been involved and sometimes it has not. So, but each time it's been passed by a majority of the organization or the committee or council that it was put in front of. So that's why it's reached this point. Council passed a resolution to pursue the grant. Council has voted to continue the process, and so we're nearing the tail end of the official submission for this grant, and council has one more opportunity to say yay or nay, and that will happen Monday night. And those people who wish to come and support or dissent the process or the project are welcome to come during the Monday night meeting and voice their opinions at public comment.
So the bike path is not required.
The bike path is not required. It is not required by MDOT to do our resurfacing project. It is required for the funding associated with the grant. The grant pays for non-vehicle infrastructure.
How does parallel parking affect blocking traffic? I have a partial answer to that. Not everybody parallel parks very well. Sometimes part of their car is out, or they're right at that left edge of their parking, right on the line, so they're a few feet off from the curb. And that can affect the motorist coming down the road, and all of a sudden get in a position where they see that car is extended out a little bit. And we have had a few parked cars get hit because they were not parked properly. Anybody else have an answer to that?
I mean, certainly by reducing the number of lanes, it gives us an opportunity to, even if nobody uses the lane that's painted for a bike lane, it can still be used as a buffer zone for those people who have difficulty parallel parking, or for those people who may not get it exactly right, and so offers a buffer lane for traffic, so that perhaps they won't get sideswiped if they're not parked exactly correctly.
MDOT said they could not change the speed limit.
Correct.
Have any of the cities regretted, is that a new one?
Is that the old ones?
Yeah, you want to put it on top or on
It's
the
on
bottom?
bottom.
Make me humble.
Stop messing with his system.
Have any other cities regretted following through with their road diets callings, i.e. Tecumseh/Quincy?
Nothing to worry
No,
about.
we don't have any information to support that.
No, we're not, at least not in our 9-county region. We're not aware of a road diet community that's reversed the road diet.
How many accidents with automobiles have we had from Carlton/City Hall to Steenberg Road? And that's been answered. That was 20
20.3.
per year. How many accidents with pedestrians have we had from Carlton City Hall to Steenberg? That was answered. Have you worked with any other cities whose citizens flatly oppose this road diet and the city and MDOT proceeded anyway?
I can talk about that. So our, the answer is, read the answer to the question again, please.
Have you worked with any other cities whose citizens flatly oppose this road diet and the city and MDOT proceeded anyway?
Okay. No, we have not. So we have changed the department procedures, guidelines have changed quite radically since, for sure, since the 70s, where MDOT would undertake litigation to force projects in communities. We now have policies most specific to what we're talking about today as our context-sensitive solutions. And that's why what that's about is working with local agencies, using local agency, municipalities, major stakeholders to help us understand what the community goals are and what the community wants, so that when we're doing the project, we're delivering a project that our citizens want, need, desire. So I think maybe about 20 years ago, one of the first road diets that was completed in Pontiac and Howell, I believe, were opposed, and MDOT began proceeding with completing the project. And that lesson led us to developing a more robust guidance and checklist. And part of that requirement is why we're here today. It's the MDOT requirement that at least one public meeting is held in the municipality or near the municipality. So we do have, the option for virtual meetings nowadays. That is held, people are aware, and they're shown what the design would be. And then the second part is a city council or the township or county, I'm going to retract that part, township or city or village, resolution of support of the proposed changes. And if we have both of those things documented, we proceed with the design that we've shown. A public meeting where there's not a consensus is an acceptable public meeting. Not everybody, we don't have uniformity in most things in our lives. And so it really is the city council or municipality resolution that we rely on to proceed with completing the road diet.
I believe this is referenced maybe those earlier studies. It says, who conducted the study, an outside party or MDOT?
An outside party. We actually requested that Hillsdale work with their city engineer, trim to complete the study. So they did follow other studies or engineering studies that have been done and accepted by MDOT. And so they were the ones to collect and verify the traffic counts, the intersection traffic turning counts. They reviewed the safety, and then they worked with the various software like synchro analysis software, which is like traffic simulation modeling, and then worked with used federal highways. highway safety manual to project into the future based on road type, road speed, volumes, and counts, future estimated safety rates, crash rates, and safety improvements. So it was Waitrim, the city's engineer consultant, that did the study.
And that traffic study,
Yep.
and that traffic study is available on the city's website.
Pretty sure Alan answered this earlier. Who is paying for the portion that MDOT grant will not cover? In other road diet projects, have you conducted a post-project survey to business owners?
We at MDOT have not. I can't speak for any local municipalities that may have done that. But none that come immediately to the top of my mind.
If approved, would this plan cause traffic to divert into residential neighborhoods looking for a shortcut?
That's a really great question.
Has a detour route been planned?
I don't believe a detour for construction has been planned yet, so,
Does MDOT establish that, or do we do that locally?
It'll be through MDOT.
yep. We try to do our best to work with, the city and public services on road, on the detours, and regardless of the outcome of the road diet decision, we'll be back again working with the city, and our engineers on developing the detouring. So I just happened to look up some studies on this earlier today. We do tend to see a temporary increase in local streets during construction as people are looking for alternative ways to get around the detour. I think our experience, my colleagues' experiences, people know where they want to go, they know their local streets, so they choose whether or not they want to follow the posted detour. We can't control where people are going to actually drive.
We can.
You can, yes.
But with our experience here, we have the fair parade that goes down Broad Street. So we establish detour routes utilizing West Street and Manning Street down to Hallett and have that as a crossover. Since I've been a police officer here, M99's had major reconstruction at least twice that I can remember. That's taken long periods of time that they have done detour routes, and I do not recall anything negative that resulted from that. We've done detour routes before for M99 that went down Steenberg and come up Griswold into the city to hit Carlton Road this way. They're not going, detour routes do not go into quote residential areas. They're using what do you call primary roads in the city? Primary roads in the city to get around. So we've shut this portion of M99 down in the past plenty of times for events and for road construction.
And was there, or is that a question that was?
And one thing on it too, this is
I think they were
this ain't a
talking
reconstruction because they've already, back in 2008, a lot of the utilities and infrastructure was upgraded, part of the project like that. This is a 2-inch mill,
Yes.
So it's a 2-inch mill and fill back with the asphalt. It could probably be done, and I haven't seen the plans yet, but it probably could be done in phases, both northbound lanes at one time, then both southbound lanes another time to keep traffic on M99.
Sorry, I misspoke. It's 1.5 inches.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've answered this kind of. What will be done? What's the plan to prevent local traffic from turning onto Berry Street, South Street, or Sharp Street to access Howell/Hillsdale to get around slow-moving traffic along M99? Number one, nobody's gonna intentionally go down Berry Street.
That's a good point.
Or sharp.
Or sharp, right?
Or south.
City, we're working on it. You're gonna have some cross traffic. It's gonna happen. The second part. In all the research and discussion, what negative aspects of this plan have been found? You think of anything that is a negative outcome?
I think probably the closest thing to a negative would be, like Alan mentioned, is there will be increased seconds of delay in our projected future year, which is 2030, of congestion at the major intersections. So that would be a downside. I think we mentioned a few seconds on some of the smaller intersections and between 14 and 20-ish on the major intersections. So that could certainly be considered to be a negative.
Why is TIFA funding being used for state highway? Couldn't fund a facade grant for $10,000 in 2023.
So TIFA's intent to help fund the road diet comes out of the fact that they implemented the placemaking study. So they're partially responsible for the idea and the pursuit. And it will be, they view it as an improvement to their district in helping to slow traffic and to drive economic development.
Yeah, there's one word on here, I'm not sure. Why are traffic studies 3 years old during COVID and 0 bikes counted? Okay.
Can you restate the first part again?
Why are traffic studies 3 years old during COVID and 0 bikes counted?
I can't really say why there were 0 bikes counted. It could have been the days that the counts were being taken. Could have been the counter went out and was there, took lunch. That was the time 5 cyclists drove by or rode by. But we definitely take the data as we present it. I believe for this project, we looked at the first study Alan mentioned was in 2016, and then 2018, and then this new one, which we began discussing about, I guess, a little over a year ago, or I guess 2 years ago. So what we've found is the traffic volumes are consistent enough that we didn't have a concern that something radically changed during COVID that changed the traffic patterns. What we've seen pretty anecdotally throughout the state is when we look at our traffic data is there were gigantic drops in data and counts in 2020, and they started creeping back up in 2021, 2022, and are pretty much back to normal in 2023 and beyond. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. There's some areas of some communities where traffic has just found people have diverted, they don't need to go where they used to go anymore. But that's the big thing for us is we didn't see volumes changing that really led us to think that we needed to go out and, the city spending additional dollars to do brand new counts. We had a historical basis for continuing the study during the COVID years.
Can I make a comment on that too?
Yeah, please.
So our traffic study counts were done at the end of 2023, and then our crash data was 2021 to 2023. So it was after 2020.
And sorry. The 2024 crash data is still not ready. So there is a significant delay for us to be able to get that. So we typically try to use 3 or 5 years depending on the location. So that's why not 2024.
If pedestrian safety and slower traffic is a big part of the plan, why not save all the money and use the police to slow down traffic?
Well,
You got a simple answer to that. Our cars being out there driving around does slow down traffic. They see a police car, it does. But however, the amount of calls we get, dealing with domestics, the other complaints, civil disputes, people with mental health crisis, and other things we're required to do, our cars are not out there just driving around or being in a specific spot for a specific amount of time. We try that periodically throughout the city, but ultimately they have to leave and go handle something else. So while they're out there driving around, it does curb things. That is something you can't study, you can't measure how much we are curbing by being out there. The data, what happens from not is measurable, but not so much measurable what we are, just our presence out there in the public is preventing. Hillsdale Renaissance owns 17 buildings in or within 1 block of Broad Street and stands to gain the most from this development. How do you plan to balance the will of the people of Hillsdale who stand against the traffic calming plan and the special interest of wealthy out-of-town investors in advising city council?
I mean, he's a taxpayer just like everybody else, so
Well, and I think the initial plans for this were prior to that
considerably,
group starting to purchase.
yeah, because they didn't start purchasing buildings until 2022. And the plans, and this was the pursuit of this started as far back as 2013.
These proposed bike lanes are between parking and the road. This poses a danger to bikers getting hit by traffic on the road and parked cars exiting. How will you keep bikers safe and prevent them from hitting open car doors?
So getting doored as a cyclist tends to be so common that the phrase getting doored is a common lexicon amongst the biking community. We do have some PSAs that we've shared around. I've seen other communities. It is kind of it's a joint effort between first is having people realizing that the laneage has changed, that there's now bikers around, and having cognizance of your surroundings. So certain things like, but the phrase is familiar, but I think it's the Dutch left, where you open your driver side door with your right arm to look behind you, or look in your rear view mirror or your side mirror as you open the door. And then for cyclists is not having headphones on, looking in the cars as you're biking. As a cyclist, it's typically quite easy to see if a car is occupied. It's more difficult with taller vehicles, especially with tinted windows. But if you see someone in the car, you should definitely be ready to take evasive action. And what we try to do is build in some buffer space in these designs so that a cyclist can swerve to the left and not go directly into traffic. But it is a joint effort, and it is something that happens. And so it takes both cyclist and driver attention to help avoid and mitigate that.
How do lines on a drawing and lines painted on the road provide enhanced safety for bicyclists?
I mean, the painted markings, it's the same type of enhanced safety that traffic lanes have, having a yellow line and a white line. You know where your car is supposed to be because the yellow line and the white line. Same with bicyclists. They know that that lane is for them, and they know to stay in that lane. There will also be signage included to help enhance the markings that will be along the streets, but it's the same as driving a car. I mean, you just know that that's the space you're supposed to be occupying.
The last M99 reconfiguration, specifically around City Hall, was done with the intention of allowing an easier flow of traffic through town, in particular trucks and semis. 78% of domestic goods are delivered or transported on or by a semi-truck. Hillsdale has significant trucking traffic which supports local industry, grain, livestock, gravel, petroleum, lumber, steel, food, and beverage. Has proper consideration been given to how a road diet will impact this commerce and kill larger economic development supported by trucking, all to save a few storefronts downtown?
So we at MDOT, all of our state roads are truck routes. So every road diet that we've done has been on a road that a truck has legal rights to be on, and we cannot, unlike local streets, cannot set up our own truck network or truck detour to send trucks through local streets. So what we do at MDOT is we make sure that these designs are using the proper design vehicles, so we pick that kind of the semi that's permitted, and make sure that the turning radius on all of the intersections have a large enough radius to allow a semi to safely make a turn. In many communities, we actually use different curb types. Many of those are mountable for semis. That is a controversial standard amongst our pedestrian advocacy community. But what I can say is that we have done road diets in communities with large percentage of truck traffic, and do see that those work.
Why does MDOT require this to stretch all the way from the city to the end of the fairgrounds? This is our city.
We had a specific design, and we've had numerous folks look at it. We don't have the engineer, the folks that made the advisement to the city here, so I can't say exactly why, but we can definitely work to get that information to Alan, and that we can have that ready for, communicated for your city council meeting.
First part of this question has already been asked and answered. Who did all the research on that, or an outside party? But the second part, who hired and paid for the research?
The city did. So that was part of council's permission to pursue the TAP grant, and because the road diet or the traffic study was required in order to apply for the TAP grant, and so all of those were part and parcel and were approved by the council in June of 2024. Yeah, 2024.
Can MDOT study the traffic issues in front of the Dairy Queen and American One Credit Union?
So I can answer that question sort of. So part of the project of the resurface, of the milling and resurfacing, was originally from Hallett to Carlton. They have actually expanded that project to extend out to Mechanic, I think. And they actually asked me if we wanted to continue the road diet through that area and possibly further. I said no, because we would require expanding our traffic study, which would be a substantial amount of money to do, and it didn't. So we chose to not continue that. And so because of that, that traffic study doesn't include that area out there, and so it doesn't include information that we would need to pursue a design that may or may not change the traffic in front of the Dairy Queen and the Taco Bell in that area, or the new KFC that will be coming in soon. So.
Has city council considered putting up speed cameras instead of the road dial plan, which will issue electronic citations to motorists? This would be a revenue stream for the city while increasing safety because of lower driving speeds. And I can answer part of that from lawsuits in other states and what's happened. Actually, other states now had to take their speed cameras down. There were issues from who was getting issued those tickets, from the courts not being able to hold anybody responsible because they were just issuing tickets to the registered owner of the vehicle, not necessarily who was operating the vehicle. Second fold, some cities found that traffic cameras were creating more accidents because people knew they were on camera. When the light turned yellow, they would come to an absolute abrupt stop, and there were a lot of rear-end accidents. That's the information I have on that, if you have more.
They're currently outlawed by our state legislature.
Is it appropriate for our representatives to ignore the majority public outcry that has came out against this waste of tax money? Well, the representatives, you're speaking of the city council, and they haven't made a decision yet. Unless somebody else has an answer to that.
Well, I mean, so no, they have not made a decision yet. That's what the resolution on Monday will be, is to vote to approve participation in the project or to stop it altogether. I did, that question did come up in front of council a few months ago, and I asked council point blank that if they wanted me to stop the pursuit of the grant and the continuation of the project, to tell me that night. And councilperson Bentley did make a motion, and council chose to continue the process. So how the resolution will go, you'll find out on Monday night. But I was instructed to continue pursuing the grant.
If drivers already do not pay attention to pedestrians, wouldn't this cause more accidents? I believe one of you answered that the cities that have done this has been a decrease in accidents, but there was not a breakdown between if it were pedestrian related. Is that accurate?
Right, yeah, yes.
Okay. Don't have the absolute answer for that one, other than there's been a reduction in overall accidents. Is it not odd no pedestrians are here cheering this on? Probably, yes. How many road diet projects does MDOT currently have in the works in the state of Michigan? I think you went over a list of cities you've worked in. Are there more that are in this process?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
My name is Kelby Wallace. I'm the manager of our MDOT office in Jackson. We handle Hillsdale, Lenawee, and Jackson counties. If this road diet goes forward, my office is going to build it. If it doesn't, the road diet doesn't go forward, we're still going to build the road, right? This road is functioning okay right now. I think everything that was said here tonight on the safety improvements are true, that there's going to be a decrease in accidents. It will be safer. It will slow people down. The traffic amount that travels on 99 is much lower than our other roads that we put road diets on. Traffic will still get through. There will be a little bit of delay, but it will still get through, and we project, 5 to 15 seconds at the most, right? But from our perspective, this is a city-driven initiative. That's why we had this meeting, and we required the resolution from there. I am not a pedestrian pusher. I sometimes butt heads with Mike. He's a planner, I'm an engineer. I build roads and bridges, that's what I do. But we try to accommodate this stuff when we're redoing the road. This is the time to do it, right? There's an opportunity here to redo the road, kind of reimagine what it looks like here. So, you know my position. I just told you there. I think a lot of us in our office kind of share that same thing. This could be a good thing, but the road will be okay if we don't do it. and we're gonna kind of resurface the road, we're gonna take care of the pavement, our infrastructure like we need to. So, to answer your question, right now, we're gonna do a road diet in Jonesville this summer. We're gonna probably do a road diet on Michigan Avenue in Jackson. In about 3 years, we had our 2 public meetings for that this last week. We did the road diet on Tecumseh and M50, a lot more traffic down there. It's very nice when you park down there and you've got that buffer. Whether you call it a bike lane or a buffer, it doesn't matter, it's nice. You can swing that door open and you've got 6 feet away from traffic, at least, plus your wide parking spot. So it's very nice. I never like to park in downtown Tecumseh, but I will now. So those are the benefits you have. You're gonna increase your safety, you're gonna decrease those crashes. You are gonna have a little bit of delay, a little more delay. It's not gonna be excessive. We've done the numbers and we've seen it all happen everywhere with just as many trucks as this. So those are kind of what we have going on in our area right now, but those are some other thoughts, you know, kind of more my plain English, the way I kind of do things about the road diet. So, thanks.
MDOT stated in January they would not cover left turn traffic signals. Why not?
I think that was just for, that was for bacon. It was specific to an intersection that was not, I think that was for all of them, and there was no reason to do it for all of them. The only traffic signal that we were planning on changing the way things may be signaled was here at Broad Street and Carlton.
Stay right there. I'm a business owner in downtown area and nobody contacted me. I'm wondering how downtown businesses were surveyed.
That question was answered before. It was not surveyed. So the information was put out there in public hearings and some businesses have expressed approval and some businesses have not, but no, we never did a survey.
If this project happens, can we install a Hillsdale It's the People sign on the south end of M99?
As long as you're out of the MDOT right of way, you can put a sign where you want.
Are you or would you consider the changes or feel they are necessary if MDOT was not already doing the work on M99? Is that why now is the right time?
Yes.
What if we don't get the grant?
Then we won't do the project.
Questions for MDOT. What happens if the June 30th deadline is missed?
What's the June 30th deadline?
So the June 30th deadline was just the unofficial deadline that we wanted to try and get all of the information submitted to the grant for the final submission, and that included the second public meeting and the council resolution. The reason that June 30th was sort of put out there was when this additional information was, when we knew that we were going to need this these additional 2 things, it was in May, and with the holiday coming up and everything, I knew I was never going to get it accomplished. So we said, well, let's do it by June 30th, and then MDOT sent me a list of potential dates that they could come and help answer questions for this meeting, and it was before the last meeting of council for the month, so that's why it was just an arbitrary date.
Did any elected officials of Hillsdale participate in the nuts and bolts negotiations / decisions?
No. Not to our knowledge.
Is the Budlong-Waldron intersection required by MDOT? That's that weird little triangle just past Macon.
That was city-based.
That was city?
Correct. Yeah, we asked for that. Help clean up our modeling that out there to avoid the left turn lane, if you're heading northbound off of Budlong. The city approached that to try to clean that intersection up is what that was for.
For MDOT, the repaving happens regardless. You already answered that, yes, you're gonna cap it or put the 2-inch. How then is $1 million to be spent? Please explain.
So it is for paint, it is for engineering, it is for traffic signals, curb, sidewalk, some trees,
Drive approach, parking lots.
drive approaches, parking areas. Yeah, I mean it's just a whole bunch of things.
I'm going to read this, it's been answered a couple times. Will this project move forward regardless of the concerns of the public? The road diet only if council by majority approves. But that approval for Monday night, again, is only to submit the grant application. MDOT could say no for some reason. But they're not approving, that's not a final deal. That's just to submit the grant application, is that correct?
I want to just clarify a little bit, not submit the grant application. That we already did after after the January. So we moved forward with submitting it, presenting it to the statewide grant review. And so this would be to move forward with the MDOT TSC portion. So proceeding with the into design and then allowing the TAP folks to make a actual commitment to fund the project. So I want to make sure we're not getting that mixed up. The application's already in, we're just kind of waiting on Hillsdale to be able to execute the contract and delivering of the assurance to deliver the funds. That's the way we do funding at the department.
Appreciate that. Pedestrians will still have to cross the same width of road to access filling station, Mozart, etc. What else is being done to improve pedestrian safety? Additional crosswalks, raised pedestrian paths, stop signs, etc. Question mark.
So we sort of covered that multiple times. The fact that we're reducing it by we're reducing the number of lanes of traffic. So there and by adding the bike lane / buffer space, it allows for pedestrians to be able to see more readily where the traffic is, and you don't have 4 lanes of traffic to be concerned with. You only have 2.
Will the speed limit change?
No.
What does the road diet have to do with work around the post office, City Hall, and Cook Street? I know you had that in your...
Right, so that's just the city taking the opportunity to improve the parking area over there. That has nothing to do with the road diet.
What about Cook Street?
Cook Street is to remove a leg out of an intersection. So instead of a 5-leg intersection, it's only a 4-leg.
Will apartment dweller parking change?
No.
Should future state legislatures or governors suspend the program which funds this road diet grant? Will Hillsdale still receive funding for this project and its maintenance?
So the funding comes from the federal infrastructure grant, and it was originally drafted in 2009 and signed into law in 2012, and has continued to be reauthorized every 4 years. And it's been included in every single presidential administration, regardless of political party.
Is MDOT aware that the city is assessing citizens $5,000 for road repairs, repaving, because they can't afford it?
You should probably answer that one. So those are special. Those are SADs, which are it's funding. So So there's a breakdown in how streets are funded. So since this is a state route, MDOT is responsible for the funding and the infrastructure of that. Okay? Then you have primary streets, and those are covered by yet another form of state funding. And then you have local streets, which are not funded by anybody except the city. And that's where the SADs have come in, because the city, everybody still wants those streets to be repaved. However, the city doesn't have all of the funding to do all of those streets. So therefore, the local citizenry along those streets are being asked to contribute more in order to repave those streets.
When tractor trailers, delivery trucks stop to deliver in front of Dante's or any business, they will block that lane, correct? Will it then be safe to pass, go around these trucks, given you would be entering the left turn lane?
So actually, those trucks would actually be blocking the bike lanes. So once again, you have an extra buffer, and so now those trucks would actually be out of the lane of traffic. And so, no, they wouldn't be impeding traffic.
I think this question was asked, but it was probably an hour and a half ago, so I'm just gonna ask it again. Does MDOT require bike lanes from Bacon to Steber in order to do the road diet downtown?
Yes, we
Yes.
have said yes.
Yes.
And we'll work to provide additional detail on that.
How many of the 20.3 crashes happen in the winter due to weather, and how many in the summer? Is this info being skewed?
So I can answer that. We have that information by month. I don't have it here in the report, but if that's something that people would want to look at, we can provide that.
Okay, I got a question. To me, please describe the county snowplow incident this recent winter as you are able. Thank you. They're very polite. I appreciate that. This winter, a county road plow truck going southbound in the outside lane between McCollum and Bacon hit a parked vehicle. Ended up 3 parked vehicles being struck altogether. I think one actually got pushed into the other one. It's been quite a while since I've reviewed the report. All 3 of those cars were legally parked. Only one had an occupant in it. The snowplow driver stated a semi was in the left lane beside them and crowded him over, so he moved over to the right, and the plow truck started striking vehicles. We were unable to corroborate the semi portion of that. The snowplow truck was found at fault for striking the 3 parked vehicles. We're not saying there was not a semi truck there, we just couldn't find anybody that saw the semi truck. I know that was brought up recently. I've been asked that a couple of times recently. That was this, it was a county plow truck. They are up and down along with the city plow trucks all the time. That's the first time I recall of a plow truck being involved in an incident with parked vehicles in the downtown area. Has there been any consideration on impacts from this proposed plan at times of heavy traffic, congestion, county fair, July 3rd fireworks, etc.?
Yes and no. I mean, there isn't. I mean, it's not part of the traffic study. But by doing the road diet and having it continue on down, I mean, it would be easy enough to create a TCO, which is a traffic control order, to allow for the bike and buffer lane to be temporarily used at the fairgrounds to allow people in and out of the fairgrounds. So, it would be something that could be utilized in extreme situations like that.
Is anybody holding any more questions?
Could I show a hand of people here that live on Broad Street or have a business on Broad Street? 1, 2, 3, 4 people?
Right.
Buffer, okay. Buffer for delivery truck, is it actually legal to park drive in bike lanes? Please elaborate on the law. Is law enforcement willing to enforce bicycle lane laws? We enforce all the laws. But we also know we have local businesses and sometimes all the parking spaces are taken and sometimes a UPS truck stops in a lane. But if now there's additional lanes down there, but if that were to change, that can't happen. I think that was part of a previous question also. They're gonna need to find a parking spot to do their delivery. So, I'm not saying we turn a blind eye to it, but we know we have local businesses that have to have deliveries also. And I'm not sure if there's a loading, unloading zone anywhere on Broad Street, Mark, not that I recall. Is a bike lane as wide as a traffic lane?
No.
5 feet?
Yes.
5 feet's a minimum.
Yep. So the most of the route, the bike lanes are all 5 feet. And then most of the route, the buffer lane changes slightly from 2.5 to 3 feet, depending on where you're at.
If the city has no money to fund local streets, why does it have money to spend on redoing parking around the post office / city hall? Also, if the city has up to $700,000 to help with the diet, why not use that money to help locals pay for the roads?
So remember, the $700,000 or $800,000 match is covered by the cap grant. That's on this, so the city's, $200,000 in this on repairs that are gonna have to be needed either now or in the future. It's just the perfect time to piggyback off a current project to try to address some of these issues. Thank you.
I just jump in just really quickly. So, there's an entire system of, all of our transportation network is eligible for a variety of funding. Almost universally in our state, local city streets are not eligible for federal aid funding. So why can't the city use this money on your local city streets or neighborhood streets? Because it's not permitted by law. So there was discussion about using other people's money. Unfortunately, that's the name of the game in transportation funding. The roads are incredibly expensive to maintain. We've been hearing MDOT say for decades that we do not have enough money to fix the roads. We don't have enough funding to fix the existing freeway network, the non-freeway network, and our local streets. So we are maximizing every single of federal dollars that we can because our federal aid dollars, all the taxes that we pay to the federal government, we get 80%, 80 cents on the dollar back, and we send 20 cents. So we get 80-20 splits on all of our roads, which allows MDOT to use more state dollars to get more federal dollars to help pay for our infrastructure. That breaks down on different types. So the question of why are we using this grant, because if we don't use it, the money has to come from somewhere else. So I think it's really important to know that this $200,000 potential local match to this grant, it cannot be federal aid, it has to be non-federal sources, it can't be transportation sources, and it is not money that you could use federal dollars to pay for local streets. So Hillsdale would have to find local funding to pay for local cities, local neighborhood streets. Connectors, arterials on the local network, those are different. There's about 8 different funding sources on the local side that can be utilized. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Remember again, Monday night, this is on the agenda, so you can attend the council meeting if you choose to do so, and come to the podium and have your say at that time in front of full council so they can hear your wishes. On the city website is the council's contact information. email addresses, a phone number. You can contact them between now and then to express your concerns or opinions also. Thank you very much.
But, one more thing, Chief, I just want to note,
Thank you very much.
sorry, just want to note for everyone here, if you saw the presentation, some of the images were a little bit small. We do have the information, both the traffic study as well as the plans. It is available on the city website. You can view those between now and the council meeting. So if you want to see that information, that's where you can find it.